Welcome, everyone, to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the Netflix limited series American Primeval, which is a Western TV miniseries created by Mark L. Smith, and all six episodes, are directed by Peter Berg. This show stars Taylor Kitsch, Betty Gilpin, uh, Kim Coates, Jai Courtney, Shay Willingham, and this show examines the fight to gain control of the American West and sometimes violent clash between religion and culture. This was a show that I was highly anticipating, being as though I was raised on Westerns. My dad was a big Western guy. I mean, that's all we watched. At least not we, but that's all he watched in the house. Hence, we had to watch it from time to time. Gunsmoke and have gun will travel, all that good stuff. And I guess it caught on because I actually was anticipating this Western, even to the point now where I would watch Yellowstone. There's something, and I just got on to Yellowstone. My wife started watching it, I would say, over the Christmas holidays. And, because there was nothing else on, and she picked that to watch. And I caught a few episodes, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. It's more of a modern Western, of course, but it it drew my interest. I was hooked in it. It was such a good show. I just love Westerns. And so this show had my attention. And then you have Peter Berg, who I didn't even know was a part of this show until I started watching it. Peter Berg, who directed Hancock, who directed Friday Night Lights, Battleship, for better or worse, Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon. I actually enjoy his films. He was an actor before he turned to directing, and I actually liked him as an actor as well, but I enjoy his work as a director. So my interest was especially piqued when I found out he directed all of these episodes, not just one or two, the pilot or whatever. No, he directed all six episodes, which dropped on Netflix on January the 9th. I watched this in one sitting. That's how good this show was. One sitting, one day, 6 hours straight. it was that good of a show. Um, what intrigued me about this Western is it showed the brutal nature of, I guess you could say, how this country came to be and how violent everything was. It wasn't so bubblegum happy-go-lucky as is depicted in, I guess you could say, some history books or even movies that show these times. Yes, you see cowboys and Indians and blah 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 in old John Wayne movies and all this other good stuff, but it wasn't so black and white. It wasn't so the good guys wore white hats and the bad guys wore black hats type thing. You knew who the bad guys were. In this show, it shows that it's deeper than that. It's more political. In some instances, it's religious. Religion that drives people into this battle for power, and it is so frightening. This was a frightening show. Now, is it 100% accurate? I can't tell you that. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't alive during these times. But it fits the bill. I can say that much. It passes the smell test of how brutal the West was. It wasn't okay, there's some land here. I'll just take some of this land that's just free and clear and build something here. No, it was much more than that. And the inclusion of the indigenous people of this country, how they were pushed out and their anger and, how they feel towards the white man and all this other good stuff. It's all depicted in this show. The actors in this show, nothing, or should I say no one who you would say are big stars, but they are actors and actresses that that you've seen in big projects in the past. Taylor Kitsch, who at one point Hollywood was trying to make Taylor Kitsch a thing, for just a portion of time, like in the early 2000s, I would say, with John Carter and Battleship and X-Men Origins Wolverine, where he played Gambit in that. He was just popping up in so much stuff, and Hollywood was just trying to shove him down our throat. It wasn't, and he fell from grace, and it wasn't him. He wasn't the problem. I think it was just uh the forceful nature of his meteoric rise to fame. Um, a lot of people are put off by that. You can't make a star. A star makes itself. It shines a light on within itself. You don't have to shine all the light on him, and that I think that ruined him in a sense. Even though Taylor Kitsch, he was constantly working. I always saw him pop up and stuff, but never to the level where he was early on in the 2000s, where he was given these big blockbuster vehicles to spearhead, and all of them pretty much crashed and burned. And it really wasn't his fault. Take, for example, Battleship, which coincidentally was directed by Peter Berg. That wasn't his fault. That movie just wasn't good. It had nothing to do with him. John Carter, it wasn't his fault. He was good in it. I actually like John. I'm one of the few people who actually enjoyed John Carter. It just, it wasn't this big property that Star Wars was allegedly based upon, or drew inspiration from. Here, this is probably the best Taylor Kitsch I've seen in a long, long time. This was a very good role for him here. Him as the lead in this show, his character had so much depth. It was so much to him. Without getting into spoilers, I think the journey that he goes on is such a well earned journey for this character, and I was there for it. I was deeply upset when the show ended. I wanted more. I wanted more, and I know this is a limited show, and we probably won't get a season 2, but it is such a good role for him. Betty Gilpin, who, man, God bless her, she needs to be in more big projects. I love her in so many different things. Here, it took a while for me to warm up to her character. Her character was so aggravating. To start off the show, she's searching for help, and she's getting this help from people, and the people she gets help from are telling her to do one thing, and she does a complete different thing. And you sit there and wondering, well, why did you enlist help from these people if you're not going to listen to these people? You constantly getting them in trouble throughout this series. You just wanted to strangle her, at least her character. It was so frustrating. But as we got closer to the wrap up of this season, you did enjoy her character. I enjoyed her performance. I just didn't care for her character per se. But my favorite character in this series, or should I say my favorite performer in this show, was Shy Whittingham. And I think I'm saying his name right, or is it Wigingham? We all know who he is. He's been in a lot of projects as well. Most recently, he was in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. He did the voice of, I think, Captain Stacy in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and he has that distinctive voice. When he talks, I love his drawl. He's perfect for a Western. And so he was perfect casting here, but I loved his character. His character was, in any other situation, I can see him being the lead character in another show or a film. But this was a different story that was being told here. But he did a marvelous job here on this show. as I was saying earlier about how it depicted the West back in 18, whenever this was set, this was a brutal, violent show. They held absolutely nothing back. Absolutely nothing was held back on this show. You saw everything in all of its glory. You saw the arrows piercing people. You saw the bullets uh, uh, tearing people apart. You saw a man get partially scalped in this show. It was just brutal. What the violent nature of it, and I it was all on purpose. It wasn't just for gore's sake. It was truly to show how violent it was back then, and I deeply appreciated it for that. I'm like, man, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. You know, if you're gonna go in, let's go all in, and it definitely went all in on this show. My flaws with the show, like I said, the Betty Gilpin character was not a well written character. Her character was not all that well written. Um, her son and the actor who plays her son, very good. I liked him. Everybody else was good. I think every other character was great. It was just her. She was so annoying, and it wasn't her fault. It was the way that character was written. And, you know, it's a good thing that we were bouncing to different stories and we weren't just centered on that story for the entire run of these 6 episodes, because it would have got old real quick, you know, because for a couple of episodes in the beginning, it really got old and we were still bouncing back and forth between storylines. But man, her character was really driving me nuts. I'm like, oh boy, Taylor Kitsch's character is telling her, look, stay on the horse. Let me handle this. And the next thing you know, she pops up, ruins the thing. Now he has to fight for their lives. He had to kill people and do all this and do it. It's like, my God. And it's all her fault. And this happened throughout the show. It didn't just happen once and she learned from her mistakes. This happened about 3 or 4 different times throughout the show. And she never learned until the very end when it was too late. But aside from that, I really did enjoy this show. There were some storylines that I'm going off of the assumption that this is it. It's listed as a limited series. This is it. You know, there'll be no continuations as far as I know. And so with that being said, going off of that premise, there are a lot of storylines that didn't get wrapped up in this show. There are a few that did. You know, the main storylines, I guess the B storyline kind of did, but there was a couple of others that I was very interested in to see what will be the outcome of the actions of these individuals in this particular storyline, and it didn't. And it was only like 2 different instances that happened. Now, if you know history, if you're a history buff like me, you know, you know. But if you want to see it play out on Netflix in this show, you're not gonna get it. But I was hoping to see a kind of a climactic end to a couple of the storylines, and we didn't get it. But it's fine. It's fine. Overall, everything is not supposed to be wrapped up in a nice shiny bow. That's life. You know, life doesn't have happy endings. The only happy ending is when you die, and because that's truly the end. And so, you know, life keeps going on. And in this show, life kept going on. You know, there's still a journey to be had here. But you know, selfishly, I wanted to see a certain character get his comeuppance, and it didn't happen. But that's neither here nor there. Overall, I did enjoy American Primeval. I think it's a very good show to start off, to kick off 2025. I had a good time with it. Like I said, I was mad when it ended. And when you get that reaction, you know you watched a good show. American Primeval, which is currently on Netflix, all 6 episodes for your viewing pleasure, gets a letter grade of a B plus. Yes, very good show. Well worth the watch. I'm telling you, you can get through it in one day. I mean, easy. I did. And I was doing stuff in between. I had to stop like between episode 3 and 4 or something, go do something for about an hour or two. I came back, watched the end, started it back up, and I went right through it. I blinked and you missed it. And these are hour-long episodes. So, yeah, man, it's that good of a show. I highly recommend it. I would love to know, have you checked out American Primeval? Or are you planning to check it out? Let me know what you thought and what you think going in. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Everybody, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for bearing with me. If you can't tell by the sound of my voice, I'm still trying to get over this virus that I had over the holidays. For some strange reason, it will not leave me alone. The whole house was sick. I kid you not. Everybody in my house got sick. It lasted 2 days and everybody else is fine. But when it came my turn, this been going on for 2 weeks and I'm still congested, stuffed up, still have a cough. I'm like, what is going on? Why me? Why did it pick me out of everybody in the house? But I'm still doing good. I just got to get this congestion thing under control. But thank you for bearing with me through this review. I had to talk to you regardless. It's the first review of the year. I feel I went too long without talking to my peoples, and I'm glad that I did. Happy New Year, everybody. I want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.